Imagine being a lighthouse standing tall in the darkest storm, guiding lost ships to safety. Waves crash against you, winds howl, yet you shine, unmoving, unwavering. But here's the harsh truth. Those ships don't love the lighthouse. They only care about its light when they're drowning, lost, or desperate. The moment the sea calms, they sail away without a second thought. And there you remain, alone, standing in the storm, waiting for the next ship that only needs you when the darkness returns. Sound familiar? Maybe you were trying to attract someone new, someone distant, someone whose attention felt just out of reach. You gave your best. You were there when they needed comfort, when they were lonely, when life got too hard. You showed up again and again, thinking your loyalty, your kindness, your availability would make them see your worth. But nothing seemed to work, did it? Have you ever thought that this constant availability, this endless giving, allowing them to use you as their personal puppet, might be the very reason they seem uninterested now? The very thing you thought would make them stay might be the reason they pull away. Maybe when you were trying to be nice, you were also teaching them that you are like that light. Steady, predictable, always shining, always there. They never had to earn your presence because you gave it freely. They never had to wonder if you'd be there because you always were. And humans, oh, we don't value what's always there. We value what's rare, what's earned, what could be lost. Were you trying to be loved or just needed? If this is making any sense, hit that like button under this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Because believe me, this video is going to change the way you see yourself and how you let others treat you. Now, before you get angry, before you point fingers and call them selfish, ask yourself this: did you teach them how to treat you? Did you hand them the manual on how to use you, page by page, thinking that being indispensable would make you irreplaceable? You see, in the world of human psychology, people are naturally drawn to what benefits them. It's not evil, it's survival. We're wired that way. But when you make yourself too available, too willing, too giving, you become like a well that never runs dry, until one day it does, and they move on to the next source. Imagine being a lifeboat in someone's storm. At first, they cling to you like you're their only hope. You keep them afloat, thinking, this means they care, they need me. But as soon as they reach the shore, they walk away, without even looking back. The lifeboat was never the destination. It was just a means to an end. You were just useful. In relationships, this dynamic plays out every day. Go through any relationship forum, and you'll find countless stories of people saying, I gave them everything, and they still left. Or, they only call when they need something. The harsh reality? You taught them to expect that from you. You trained them to believe your love came with no limits. But here's the thing. You can change this. You can teach people how to treat you, starting now. You can set boundaries, reclaim your energy, and stop being useful just to be seen. It's not selfish. It's survival for your soul. As our wise friend Rupi Kaur once said, how you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. So, are you ready to accept the challenge? Affirm with me. I choose me. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. I choose me. And don't just keep it to yourself. Declare it. Write it in the comments for once and for all. Show that you're with me. Show me that these words are making an impact. And, oh, show them that you've chosen yourself over them. Drop this in the comments. I choose me. Declare it. Own it. Because they only love what you allow, until you decide that love without respect isn't love at all. Let's dive in. The real picture is about to begin. So now, I know there's a question lingering in your mind that whispers, if I start living for myself, if I stop being so available, won't I come off as selfish? Won't people think I don't care? Oh, let me stop you right there. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. You can't pour from an empty cup, yet you've been draining yourself dry, thinking it makes you good, thinking it makes you worthy. But here's the truth. Sacrificing yourself isn't love. It's self-neglect. Think of a tree that gives shade to everyone but never gets watered. How long do you think it will stand? It will wither, no matter how noble its intention to provide shelter. You can't be everything for everyone and expect to survive. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly. That includes you, your growth, your happiness, your peace. All of it requires time, space, and boundaries." Living for yourself doesn't mean rejecting others. It means protecting yourself so you can show up for the right people in the right way. When you board a flight, the safety instructions always say, "Put on your oxygen mask first before helping others." Why? Because you're useless to anyone else if you can't breathe. The same goes for life. You can't show up fully for others until you've shown up fully for yourself. I get it. You're scared of being misunderstood. You think people will call you cold, distant, selfish. But here's the thing. Those who love you won't ask you to destroy yourself for their comfort. And those who do, they were never your people to begin with. Think of the ocean's tides, constantly moving, ebbing, flowing, giving and taking in balance. If the ocean only gave, it would be drained. But because it knows when to rise and when to fall, it stays powerful, endless, unstoppable. I once read a post on a relationship forum where someone wrote, "I gave and gave, thinking it would make them stay. But all it did was teach them to take." Does that hit home for you? Maybe it's time to stop being the one who always gives and never receives. The poet Nayyirah Waheed said, "And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend." It took a long breath and replied, "I have been waiting my whole life for this." This isn't about abandoning others. It's about no longer abandoning yourself. You can choose yourself and still care for others. You can say no and still be kind. You can set boundaries without being heartless. So please affirm with me once more, I choose me. And still, if you have not dropped it in the comments, please make some time and do it for yourself. But I know, this choosing yourself, it's not easy. It sounds simple, but it's not. Choosing yourself while staying compassionate, that's the real challenge. Balancing self-love and empathy without becoming a doormat or shutting people out takes strength and clarity. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. The right way to choose yourself without apology while staying true to your heart. Let's get started. Number 1, fill your cup without spilling theirs. So folks, we've already discussed that you have to stop filling everyone else's cup while leaving your own empty. You've poured and poured, hoping that one day they'd notice, that maybe this time they'd appreciate you for all that you are, not just for what you can do for them. But nothing seemed to work, did it? Here's where it gets tricky. You can't stop giving entirely. You can't go through life with a closed heart, refusing to care, love, or support others. That's not strength. That's isolation. And I know you still love them. You still want them close. Maybe you've even tried to go distant, tried to detach, tried to let go. but it's just not working. Oh, that pure love. Love isn't the problem. Your heart isn't the enemy. The issue comes when your love becomes one-sided, when you pour endlessly into someone who only takes, when you try so hard to make them see your worth that you forget your own. You can't stop giving, but you can choose how much you give. The key is to fill your cup without spilling theirs. It's about finding balance, not shutting down. Imagine being a candle burning brightly in a dark room. Your flame lights up the space, bringing warmth and comfort. But what happens if you burn without pause? You'll burn out. You can't keep shining if you never take a moment to recharge. People can't appreciate what you've given if you never stop giving. If you're always available, always willing, always present, they'll start seeing your kindness as a given, not a gift. They'll expect you to be there without realizing how much it costs you. Maybe you've been giving too much, thinking that love means sacrifice. But here's the thing. Love isn't about draining yourself dry. It's about balance. You can care deeply while still protecting your energy. You need to give from abundance, not emptiness. If you're exhausted, depleted, and emotionally drained, you're not really helping anyone. You're just breaking yourself. Offer support, but know when to pause. If they expect you to fix everything, remind them that you are not their solution. You are your own. Love them, but love yourself more. You can't save someone at the cost of your soul. True love doesn't consume, it empowers. Imagine being a river flowing through a valley. The river nourishes the land, brings life, and supports everything around it. But if it gives everything, it will run dry. A healthy river knows when to flow and when to rest. And you, my friend, you need that balance too. I remember reading a post on a forum where someone said, "I gave and gave, thinking it would make them stay, but all it did was teach them to take." Does that hit home for you? Have you been there? You can still love them, you can still care, but you can't save someone by sacrificing yourself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Make it your business to draw boundaries, because no one else will do it for you." So, how do you fill your cup without spilling theirs? Prioritize yourself first. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to step back when you're overwhelmed. Being needed doesn't mean you have to be used. Set limits on your energy. If someone only calls when they need something, pause before answering. If they expect you to fix their life, remind them that you are not their lifeline. You are your own. Be generous, but set boundaries. Kindness doesn't mean endless availability. You can care without sacrificing your well-being. And remember this, you are not a faucet people can turn on and off whenever they please. You are a person with needs, emotions, and limits. And it's your responsibility to make sure those limits are respected. So, are you ready to stop pouring yourself into everyone else's life while forgetting your own? Drop this in the comments. I protect my energy. Declare it. Own it. Because choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. You can still love, still care, and still give, without losing yourself. Let's keep going, because this lesson has a lot more to offer. Number 2. Love with roots, not chains. So folks, let's talk about love, the kind that roots you, not the kind that chains you down. I know what you've been through, loving someone so much that you lose yourself, thinking that if you hold on tight enough, they'll never leave. But here's the reality. Love built on chains will break you. Real love. It grounds you while letting you grow. Maybe you've been in a relationship where you felt like you had to be everything. You thought, if I'm always there, if I sacrifice enough, if I never say no, they'll stay. You wrapped your love around them like chains, holding them close, hoping they'd see how deeply you cared. But the harder you held on, the further they drifted. Love isn't about control. It's about connection. It's not about being everything to someone. It's about being yourself while letting them choose to be there. Love with roots, not chains. Imagine a tree standing tall in a vast field. Its roots run deep, anchoring it securely, but its branches stretch toward the sky, free to grow, free to reach. The roots support the tree, they don't trap it. You see, when you love with chains, you hold on from a place of fear. Fear that they'll leave. Fear that you're not enough. Fear that if you let them go, they won't come back. But when you love with roots, you trust. You trust that what's meant for you will stay, not because you're forcing it, but because it chooses to. Think about it. Have you ever tried to hold on to someone by constantly being available, by always sacrificing your own needs, by giving everything, even when it hurt you? You thought being selfless would keep them close, but all it did was teach them that your needs don't matter. You became their constant, their safety net, their comfort zone, until they took your presence for granted. The philosopher Khalil Gibran once said, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you." True love doesn't suffocate, it breathes. It doesn't demand, it invites. Maybe you've been in a place where you felt like if you let go even a little, they'd leave. So you held on tighter, tried harder, gave more, until you lost yourself in the process. You thought that loving more would fix things. But love isn't about how much you give. It's about how you give. I remember reading a forum story where someone said, "I built my entire life around them, and when they left, I didn't know who I was anymore." That's what happens when you love with chains. You make them your entire world, and when they leave, your world crumbles. But when you love with roots, your life remains grounded, even if they walk away. Loving with roots means supporting them while standing tall yourself. It means showing up without giving up your identity. It means choosing someone while never abandoning yourself. It's not about making them need you. It's about being someone worth choosing. Imagine being a lighthouse again, steady, strong, unmoved by the storm. Ships may come and go, but the lighthouse never chases. It stands firm, rooted in its purpose. Be that lighthouse. Stand tall, not as something they can hold on to, but as something they respect and choose to return to. If you've been loving with chains, it's time to stop. You don't need to be everything to be enough. You don't have to sacrifice your dreams, your time, or your identity to be loved. You're worthy of love that lifts you up, not love that weighs you down. The poet Rumi once said, "Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Let life live through you. The wound is where the light enters you." Maybe this is your chance to stop holding on and start letting go. Not of love, but of control, fear, and self-sacrifice. So, are you ready to love with roots, not chains? Are you ready to be grounded in your own strength while letting life flow naturally? Drop this in the comments. I choose rooted love. Declare it. Own it. Because real love doesn't trap you, it frees you. And you, my friend, are worthy of that kind of love. Number 3. Stop playing hero in someone else's story. So folks, let's talk about something hard to admit but impossible to ignore. Playing hero in someone else's story. I know. You care. You've always cared. You want to fix things, help them heal, be the one they can't live without. You think that if you show up enough, if you save them every time they fall, They'll finally see your worth, finally choose you. But here's the truth, they won't. Because the more you try to rescue someone, the less they'll see you as a partner, and the more they'll see you as a lifeline. Not someone to love, but someone to lean on. They'll call you when they're drowning, but forget you when the waters are calm. Sound familiar? Maybe you've been the fixer, the one who stayed long after the red flags waved high, thinking that if you were just patient enough, loving enough, forgiving enough, they'd change. You've cleaned up their messes, taken their emotional baggage, made their struggles your responsibility. You thought being the hero would make them choose you, but all it did was teach them you'd always be there, even when they didn't deserve you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Man is not disturbed by events, but by the view he takes of them." You thought being needed would make you indispensable, but what it really did was trap you in a cycle where your worth depended on their problems. Here's what they don't tell you. People can only save themselves. You can't be their cure or their answer. You can offer support, but you can't heal someone who isn't willing to heal themselves. Imagine being a lifeguard in the ocean. You can dive in to save someone drowning, but if they won't stop fighting you, they'll pull you under. Being the hero doesn't work if they're not ready to be saved. I read a post once where someone said, "I spent years trying to fix someone's broken heart, and in the end, they left me for the person they were always waiting for." That hit hard because it happens all the time. You become the bridge they walk across to reach the life they want, without ever intending to stay. Stop making their problems your mission. You're not a character in their story. You're the main character in your own. You can't keep setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. It will never be enough. The poet Nayyirah Waheed said, "I am not the answer. I am the question." You don't exist to be someone's solution. You are allowed to love deeply without losing yourself. So, are you ready to stop being their hero and start being your own? Drop this in the comments. I choose my story. Declare it. Own it. Because you're not here to save anyone. You're here to save yourself. Number 4. Don't just set boundaries. Live them. So folks, setting boundaries feels selfish, doesn't it? You've been told that good people are always available, always forgiving, always there, no matter what. So when you start drawing a line, when you say, "I can't do this anymore," or "I need space," suddenly you're the bad guy. You're accused of being cold, distant, selfish. But here's the reality. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors with locks. They're not about shutting people out, they're about deciding who gets access to you, when, and how much. And trust me, you have every right to protect your peace. Think of your life like a beautiful garden. If you let anyone and everyone walk through it without limits, they'll trample your flowers. They won't notice the damage because you never set a fence. You thought being open would make people appreciate you, but instead, they took without asking. Maybe you've been there. Letting someone come back over and over, even after they've hurt you. You kept saying, "This is the last time," but it never was. You thought that if you gave them another chance, they'd change, but all they learned was how far they could push you. The harsh truth is, people respect the boundaries you enforce, not the ones you mention. Saying, "I have boundaries" means nothing if you're still answering late-night calls, still accepting empty apologies, still showing up after being disrespected. Epictetus, the great Stoic philosopher, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Setting boundaries isn't just about speaking them, it's about living them. It's about showing people how they can treat you by what you allow. Imagine being a locked gate at a private garden. People can admire from a distance, but entry isn't guaranteed. They must knock, wait for permission, and respect the space once inside. That's you. You are allowed to protect your peace, not because you're mean, but because your well-being matters. I read a story once where someone said, "I kept forgiving because I didn't want to lose them, but I lost myself instead." Does that hit home for you? Have you been there? Boundaries aren't cruel, they're clarity. They tell people exactly where you stand. They say, "This is what I accept, and this is what I won't." And here's the thing, the right people will respect them. The ones who don't, they were only interested in what they could take from you, not in who you truly are. You don't have to explain yourself. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone access to your life if they've shown you they don't value it. So, are you ready to stop talking about your boundaries and start living them? It's time to draw the line, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Drop this in the comments. I live my boundaries. Declare it. Own it. Because setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. And you, my friend, are worth protecting. Number 5. Kind, but not a doormat. So folks, being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Let that sink in. Somewhere along the way, someone made you believe that being nice meant accepting everything. That if you said no, if you set limits, if you stood up for yourself, you weren't being kind enough. But here's the reality. Kindness without boundaries is self-betrayal. It's not compassion, it's emotional servitude. You can be gentle and still say no. You can be caring without letting people walk all over you. Kindness doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means respecting yourself enough to know when to step back. Imagine being a bridge connecting two places. Every day, people walk across you, relying on your strength. But bridges need maintenance too. If no one ever checks for cracks, if no one ever cares for the structure, it collapses. Kindness without limits is like that neglected bridge. It will break. Maybe you've been the nice one for so long that it feels impossible to stand up for yourself. You've stayed silent to keep the peace, smiled through disrespect, and agreed to things you never wanted, just to avoid conflict. But the longer you suppress your needs, the more you lose yourself. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You can't control how others treat you, but you can control what you allow. Being kind doesn't mean letting things slide. It means leading with compassion while being clear about your limits. It means knowing when to offer grace and when to walk away. Think about it. Have you ever been too nice and ended up feeling used? Have you ever given second chance after second chance, hoping someone would change, but nothing ever did? Kindness isn't about accepting everything. It's about choosing where to give your energy. It's about being good-hearted without becoming a punching bag. I remember reading a forum story where someone said, "I thought being kind meant being there for them no matter what, until I realized I was only there when it benefited them." Does that sound familiar? The poet Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." If someone keeps taking advantage of your kindness, it's not kindness anymore, it's enabling. So, are you ready to be kind, but not a doormat? To lead with love, respect and strength, not out of fear of losing someone, but out of respect for yourself? Drop this in the comments. I choose respect. Declare it. Own it. Because being kind doesn't mean losing yourself. It means protecting yourself with compassion. And you, my friend, deserve both. Number 6. Be the sun. Shine, but don't chase. So folks, be the sun. Shine, but don't chase. Stop running after people who only notice your light when they're trapped in darkness. You are not a shooting star, burning yourself out for someone who makes a wish and moves on. You're the sun, constant, powerful, and self-sustaining. You don't need anyone's attention to shine. You just do. But here's where many people get stuck. You start chasing. You shine your light towards someone who barely notices you, hoping, if I try harder, if I love more, they'll finally see me. And when they don't, you dim yourself thinking, I'm just not enough. But the sun never chases. It rises every morning, whether people appreciate its warmth or hide from its heat. It doesn't plead to be noticed. It just exists in its power. Be like that. You don't need someone else's validation to know you're worthy. Maybe you've been in a place where you felt like you had to prove yourself to be loved, giving more, caring more, sacrificing more, but it was never enough. The harsh truth is, some people only value the light they have to chase. If you're always there, always shining toward them, they'll take you for granted. The great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. If your mind stays trapped in, why won't they choose me? You'll always be chasing something you can't control. But if you focus on being your best self, with or without them, you'll be unstoppable." Think about it. Have you ever bent over backward to make someone see your worth, only to feel invisible the moment you stop trying? Have you ever stayed longer than you should have, hoping they'd finally appreciate you? How did that work out? The sun doesn't chase, and neither should you. If they can't see your light, stop shining toward them. Save your warmth for those who value it without needing to be reminded. Stop explaining your worth to people who choose to be blind. I once read a post where someone said, I was always the one reaching out, checking in, making plans, until I stopped and realized they never cared enough to do the same. Does that resonate with you? You are the source, not the reflection. You don't need to beg for attention or settle for bare minimum energy. Be the sun. Shine because it's who you are. The right people will notice and stay. The rest? Let them keep chasing something they'll never find anywhere else. Drop this in the comments. I shine without chasing. Declare it. Own it. Because your light isn't meant to be pursued. It's meant to be felt. And you, my friend, are already shining. Number 7. It's not selfish. It's self-respect. Let's get something straight. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's self-respect. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that if you say no, if you choose your peace, if you walk away from what's breaking you, you're being selfish. Society told you that good people are always available, always forgiving, and always putting others first, even at the expense of their own happiness. But here's the truth. You can't be good to anyone if you're not good to yourself. And respect starts within. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you meant no, just to avoid conflict? How many times have you kept quiet because you didn't want to be seen as difficult? How many times have you stayed in situations where you were being used, drained, or disrespected because you were too afraid of being labeled selfish for walking away? And oh, I know what's going through your mind right now. You're probably thinking, but what if they think I don't care anymore? Or, what if they leave me when I set boundaries? Let me tell you something. If someone leaves because you demanded basic respect, they were never there for you. They were there for what you provided. Respect isn't negotiable. You can't force someone to see your worth if they're determined to stay blind. Imagine being in a relationship where you're always the giver. You're always the one compromising, forgiving, showing up, fixing things and making plans. You tell yourself, I'm doing this because I love them. But the truth is, you're afraid. Afraid that if you stop giving, they'll stop choosing you. So you keep pouring, even when your cup is empty. You think, if I love harder, if I'm more understanding, they'll see my worth. But they don't. All they've learned is that you'll never stop giving, no matter how little they offer in return. I once read a post where someone wrote, I gave everything, my time, my love, my loyalty, and they still left like I meant nothing. That hit hard, because being selfless doesn't guarantee being loved. Sometimes it just makes you easy to take advantage of. And listen, I know you don't want to come across as selfish. You're probably thinking, but won't I seem cold if I start saying no? First of all, no. You're not a vending machine that spits out kindness whenever someone pushes the right button. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say, not today. Being selfish is taking from others while giving nothing back. Self-respect is protecting your peace while still caring for others, but without sacrificing yourself. There's a huge difference between selfishness and self-worth. Think about the last time you let someone disrespect you and then forgave them without an apology. You told yourself, I'm being the bigger person. But were you? Or were you avoiding the discomfort of confrontation? People learn exactly how far they can push you by what you tolerate. They'll keep crossing lines because you never enforce them. It's not malice, it's human nature. I remember hearing about someone who kept forgiving their partner for cheating because they promised to change. After the 5th time, they realized the partner never had to change because forgiveness was guaranteed. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control what you allow. Choosing yourself feels selfish because you're breaking a pattern. You've been trained to put others first, taught that being needed means being valuable. Walking away from toxic dynamics feels like betrayal, but staying is betrayal to yourself. It's not your job to keep saving someone who refuses to change. It's not your responsibility to fix what you didn't break. And it's not selfish to expect basic respect and effort in return for your love. I once read a quote by Naira Wahid that said, I am mine before I am ever anyone else's. Let that sink in. Start by speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes. Set boundaries, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself. Walk away when your worth isn't recognized. Learn that no is a complete sentence. Be kind, but not at your expense. Be giving, but only from abundance. Be loving, but never at the cost of your self-worth. And here's the reality. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They may not like it at first, but they'll adapt. The ones who don't, they were only invested in what they could take, not in who you truly are. Drop this in the comments. I choose respect. Declare it. Own it. Because choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. You can still love, still care, and still give, without losing yourself. And you, my friend, are worth protecting. Conclusion. You're not the villain. You're the hero of your story. So here's the truth. You're not the villain in someone else's story just because you chose yourself. You're the hero of your own. You've been walking on eggshells, shrinking yourself, bending over backward, afraid that setting boundaries or choosing your peace would make you selfish, cold, or uncaring. But listen, protecting your energy doesn't make you a villain. Prioritizing your mental and emotional health doesn't make you the bad guy. In fact, it makes you stronger than ever before. Because heroes don't wait for someone to rescue them, they rescue themselves. Maybe you've spent too long believing that if you just gave a little more, loved a little harder, or held on a little longer, things would change. You played nice, stayed quiet, and sacrificed your needs, thinking that someday they'd notice, someday they'd appreciate you. But that someday never came, did it? And now you're done waiting. You've realized that love doesn't mean losing yourself. Respect isn't earned through sacrifice. Value isn't determined by how much you endure. It's time to stop being the character in their story and start being the hero in your own. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop asking for permission to live on your own terms. You're not responsible for fixing someone who refuses to change. You're not required to keep giving when nothing comes back. And you're not obligated to dim your light just to make someone else comfortable. People might not like it when you set boundaries, but that's because they benefited from your lack of them. Let them think you're selfish. Let them call you cold. Their opinion doesn't define your worth. You do. I know it's hard. You'll have moments of doubt, of guilt, of second-guessing yourself. You'll wonder if maybe you were too harsh, or if maybe you should have given them one more chance. But remember this, every time you choose yourself, you win. Every time you say no to disrespect, you say yes to your peace. Every time you walk away from what's breaking you, you step closer to the life you deserve. So, are you ready to be the hero of your story? Not next week, not someday, but today. Now listen, if this message hit home, if something stirred inside you while listening, don't just keep it to yourself. There's someone out there right now, feeling lost, drained, and forgotten. Someone just like you before you woke up. Be the reason they find their strength too. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Think about it. What if your one simple click becomes the moment someone finally realizes they're allowed to choose themselves? You've already come this far. You're already rising. Don't stop now. Be the light that someone else didn't see coming. Like, subscribe, share. Because you know how it feels to be in that place. And you know how much it matters to finally break free. And I would love to see you in tomorrow's video, so make sure to set aside a little time for yourself. You've already taken one step toward becoming unstoppable. Don't stop now. See you there.